The final boss is back. It's go time. Season 3 is here. Are you tuning in? Every Sunday is Sitting Down Sundays with the final boss. Get ready for an inspiring journey as we dive deep into the transformation from the nation's capital to the entertainment capital of the world. This is the conversation that will ignite your dreams and fuel your ambitions. What you'll experience: game-changing insights from industry leaders, real talk about making impossible dreams possible, the blueprint for leveling up your life, motivation that hits different. This isn't just another podcast episode. This is your wake-up call to greatness. Don't just listen, absorb, don't just hear. Transform, don't just dream, execute. Drop a like in the comments if you're ready to level up with us.
Welcome to the Final Boss podcast, Sitting Down Sundays with none other than I, the one and only, the Final Boss. Man, happy Sunday to each and every last single one of you, no matter where you're watching us from. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. This is the Final Boss podcast. This is the place. This is the place to be on a Sunday night. Listen, I know football is on right now. My team is actually playing. I'm on the edge of my seat, hoping we get this win. But I know the conditions are very difficult as we're playing Chicago and like 9-degree weather. So, but man. So, bear with me. And if you haven't, go get Go Time. I'm going to just lead right into it. Go get Go Time. This is your motivation manuscript. I hear there's other Go Time books out there, but this is the one with the train, with the blue flames, and the Washington, D.C. background in it. This is the one you want right here. This is your motivation workbook. Go get Go Time, ladies and gentlemen. Go get Go Time. Hello, everyone. Chikandi, hello. Andrea, hello. 301 Garage, hello. R. Singh, hello. Everyone who's tuning in right now. I know I've missed a few others. We're allowing some other people to come on as they're, as they do. But look, I got a great show for you tonight, man. Before we get into it, look, make sure you go like, share, subscribe. No matter where you see us. It's on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Kick, Instagram, and Spotify. Make sure you go like, share, subscribe, no matter what it is. I'm a little unraveled right now. I thought we was going to be beating these guys, but we're not. And it's another edge of your seat game, and I hate those games, man. I really do. Yeah, it's just so nerve-wracking, especially now with the playoffs right here, man. We're in the playoffs, so thankful for that. But look, if you haven't been to our website, go to our website and check out all of our episodes. Go check out all our episodes. And the website is www.thefinalbosspodcast.com. That is www.thefinalbosspodcast.com. If you have any questions, concerns, or you'd like to be on the show, shoot us an email at info@thefinalbosspodcast. That's info@thefinalbosspodcast.com. All one word. Shoot us an email, man. We quickly reply. Shoot us and continue to leave us comments or DMs or whatever you're going to do, man, to keep in contact with us. We appreciate all of the conversation and everything else that you guys may want to add to the Final Boss podcast, Final Boss Nation, Final Boss community. Hashtags for the call to actions, hashtags for the do-outs. Look, this is what we do here, man. We get it done. We're all on this mission and we all on this journey together. Now I have that out the way. Look, let's get into tonight's show, man. Let's get into tonight's show. Tonight's show, right? Episode number 172. Episode number 172. On our way to episode 200, in which 201 will start season 4. Season 4, man. Right now we're in the reckoning. Season 4 will be the rebirth, right? Season 4 will be the rebirth. And tonight's title is going to be is called "Those Without Voice Don't Matter." And here's history's brutal lesson in that, right? Let's start off with this. Let's start off talking about 2001, right? 2001, September 11th. I was at the Pentagon. Followed by me serving in Afghanistan and Iraq because of that very day, right? Look, I've spent 23 years watching who gets remembered, right? And I've spent all of my life watching who gets erased. And tonight I'm telling you the uncomfortable truth about most people, the very thing that most people won't say out loud, right? If you don't speak, if you don't have a voice, you don't matter. Not to history, not to the cultural record, not beyond one generation, right? Merit doesn't speak for itself. Excellence without platform equals erasure. Contribution without documentation equals irrelevance. I've watched warriors die unnamed because no journalist covered what happened to them in theater, right? I've seen veteran entrepreneurs with superior products lose to inferior competitors with bigger marketing. I've witnessed parents take profound wisdom to the grave because they never documented it, right? So tonight, man, for the next 60 minutes, we're going to be talking about that very thing, right? And this isn't philosophy. This is battlefield intelligence, right? From someone such as myself who's seen erasure happen across military, corporate, and digital domains, right? We're building this platform together. We're building this podcast empire together. We're currently, I just did a correct calculation on the social media across all platforms. That's Turbo the CEO. That's the Final Boss Podcast the Final Boss Podcast. That's the Final Boss Podcast _podcast. That's at iTrinity what else? I think, and there's a few others. Across all platforms, we are at 350,000 followers, right? We're doing 5 shows weekly. 5 shows weekly, man. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday, right? And I'm doing this because I refuse to be voiceless. I refuse to let my daughter wonder who her dad was. I refuse to watch good people disappear from history simply because they didn't document their existence. Voice equals existence. Platform equals power. Documentation equals immortality, right? But only if you build it, protect it, and use it. And tonight, this is what we're going to be talking about, because your voice matters, but only if you use it. You have to stay dangerous. You have to stay documented, people. Now listen, right? I've I've been doing a lot of thinking, man, about a lot of different things regarding marketing, branding, protecting your IPs, protecting your voice, protecting your brand. And I thought that I can tie that into tonight's episode in such a way where not only people get it, but you see exactly where I'm coming from and why it's so important to have a voice and to protect that voice, right? Um, it's starting to be a thing, especially with AI, right? I was talking to some good people earlier this week in reference to um it was Matthew McConaughey, right? He is protecting his IP, his name, and that catchy phrase that he says as well. He threw that in there also. So, what's the difference? What's the difference between a hero and a casualty, right? What's the difference between a movement and a footnote? What's the difference between legacy and erasure? It's not valor, right? It's not valor. It's not sacrifice. It's not even unaliving. It's whether you had a voice or someone willing to speak for you, right? Find a Boss community, Find a Boss Nation, smarts, warriors, motivators. This is Sitting Down Sunday, episode 172. We're confronting one of history's most uncomfortable truths. If you don't have a voice, you simply don't matter. Now, before you start getting defensive, you have to hear exactly where I'm coming from, right? Because we're talking about history. And we're not talking about history that's in books. We're not talking about history or cultural memory. We're not talking about the legacy that outlives us, right? We're not talking about that. What we're talking about is actually, we're going to do more than just talk about it. I'm going to show you why voice equals existence, why silence equals erasure, and most importantly, what you need to do about starting right now. This, again, people, tonight's show isn't about philosophy. It's not. As I stated earlier, this is about battlefield, man. This is about battlefield intelligence, preparedness, and awareness, right? This is the AAR. And for those who don't know what that is, this is your after action review, after action reporting. And it's coming from someone who's watched heroes be unalived, right? I watched entrepreneurs get buried, right? All because they didn't understand that voice is survival infrastructure, right? So if you haven't gotten your pen and paper, go get your pen and paper. Make sure you get ready to take some notes because this episode we're going to dive in, man. And I want to challenge each and every last single one of you. I'm going to challenge everything you thought you knew about legacy, relevance, and historical permanence, right? Now, here's the thing. Here's what specifically qualifies me to talk about voice and historical erasure tonight, right? You guys know I if you don't, I was working at the Pentagon on 9/11 as a fiber optic tech, right? I stood in multiple combat zones, right? I've owned several businesses. I've witnessed algorithmic suppression on numerous occasions. I was just battling the double T platform the other day for more community guidelines. This is a constant battle. a constant battle to be silenced and suppressed, right? They're here to suppress you. You're a creator. You want to get your truth out. They're here to suppress you, man. They are here to suppress the important messages. And I've seen firsthand how history chooses who matters and who disappears completely. This isn't theoretical discussion. This is tactical intelligence from multiple battlefields. We're going to be talking about military, we're going to be talking about corporate, and we're going to be talking about the digital space, right? Tonight's mission is to go over and give you the insight, as I am the architect of insight, right? And we're going to cover all of these things, right? We're going to cover all of these things, from the combat zone to corporate warfare to digital erasure. And we're going to be discussing, of course, consciousness, because it all ties in. The sovereignty architecture you need to build starting tonight, right? Starting tonight. And there's an uncomfortable truth. There's an uncomfortable truth, man. History is a brutal editor. It cuts people from the final draft, not based on merit, contribution, or sacrifice, but based on one criteria. Did they have a voice? Did they have a platform? Did they have amplification? And as the youngins say, did they have motion? If the answer is no, they don't matter. Not to history, not to the cultural record, not to anyone beyond one generation of immediate family. That's the reality we're unpacking. Not to depress you, but to activate you. Because once you understand the mechanism to erasure, you can build immunity against it, right? So let's execute, man. And before we get into the execution of it, let's go into the brass tacks, right? Let's go into the brass tacks. Tonight's brass tacks. The dead cannot speak for themselves. The silence cannot write their own stories. And the forgotten, they never had the platform to matter in the first place. Your voice isn't a luxury. It's your insurance policy against irrelevance. Let me strip this down to absolute fundamentals. That was tonight's brass tacks, right? Because there can be zero confusion about what we're discussing tonight. History is not a fair arbitrator. It doesn't preserve the most deserving stories. It doesn't memorialize the greatest contributors. It doesn't recognize the most significant sacrifices. History is a brutal editor that cuts entire populations, movements, individuals, and contributions from the final draft based on a single criterion: voice, right? Voice. Did you have a platform? Did you have amplification? Did you document your existence? Did someone with reach speak for you? If yes, you matter. If no, you're erased. You could be the most skilled warrior on any battlefield. Tactical brilliance, uncommon valor, ultimate sacrifice. But if no journalist embedded with your unit, if no one with a camera documented your actions, if no one with a platform amplified your story, you become a footnote in reports. And that's 99.9% of humanity. 99.9% of humanity. They would never read it. They would never see it. They would never hear of you. You could be the most brilliant entrepreneur, revolutionary product, exceptional, and have exceptional execution, genuine value creation. But if you can't command attention in the marketplace, if you don't have marketing infrastructure, if you can't compete with competitors' platforms, you go bankrupt while inferior products with superior marketing dominate. You could be the most dedicated parent, profound, full of profound wisdom, right? Hard-earned lessons, values worth transmitting, right? But if you don't document your thoughts, if you don't record your voice, if you don't create legacy architecture, your grandchildren will never know who you were, right? Merit without voice equals obscurity. Excellence without platform equals erasure. Contribution without documentation equals irrelevance. That's not pessimism. That's not cynicism. That's tactical reality from someone who's seen this mechanism play out across military ops, corporate competition, and digital platforms. Tonight, I'm telling you, man, I'm showing you three things, right? Showing you three things. Number one, the mechanism of historical erasure and how it works, why it works, and why and who it affects. Number two, the three types of voicelessness and which one you're currently vulnerable to. And number three, the sovereignty architecture you need to build specific tactics that are executable protocols and have measurable outcomes, right? Your voice matters, but only if you build it, protect it, amplify it, and use it. This is brass tacks. This is mission. This is the Final Boss Podcast, Final Boss Nation, Final Boss community, right? Now, after 9/11, the immediate aftermath, right? We talking about days, weeks, months that followed. We all witnessed something that would fundamentally shape all of our understanding of legacy, memory, and historical permanence. The creation of official narratives, right? The selection of voices, the choosing of who would matter. We watched what happened, right? We watched people become household names. We listened to their stories, right? We watched major network interviews. We watched and saw her what was documented, right? We watched that. The films, the highlight reels, right? The congressional recognitions, presidential acknowledgments, legacy that was permanently preserved, right? Whether it was first responders, whether it was individuals who just stood on high ground and performed heroic tasks, right? Saving lives, making life or unaliving decisions, right? Same valor under impossible conditions, but no media connection. There are plenty of stories that we don't know about. There were no journalists there to record those heroic acts, right? There's no one telling their story. No camera crew that was following them around, no platform amplification, no voice, right? Where are they now in historical memory, right? Are they mentioned in official uh, reports and databases, right? I don't think so. Civilian America, we would never know. Names, names upon names upon names that we would never know about, right? Data points and after action documentation that we would never read. Contractors who ran toward danger while others were being evacuated, right? Support staff who saved lives in a coordinated effort in the midst of the chaos. Technicians who stayed at critical posts to make sure that others were safe, right? And the list goes on. The list goes on, right? During that time, we watched police and firemen and other medical staff orchestrate and evacuate under extreme duress. Many, many unnamed, many unremembered, beyond their immediate families. Yeah, their families know, but their history, they were part of history. But do you know them? Do I know them? No, we don't. And here's the question that changed everything for me, right? Was their courage less than? Did their sacrifice mean less? Did their families deserve less national recognition? Absolutely not, right? So why don't we remember them? Why aren't their names taught in schools? Why don't uh, the documentaries feature their stories? Because voice determined who we remember. I want you to open your minds and think about this, right? You've been programmed, right? I want you to open your minds and think about exactly what I'm stating, right? Platform determined permanence. Media access determined legacy, right? And 23 years later, right? Ask any of your friends, ask any of your family to name 10 heroes from that day. Ask them to name 10 heroes from that day. They'll name the ones who had media presence, who had journalist amplification, who had platform reach. The others, forgotten. Not because they contributed less, not because they mattered less, but because they were voiceless in historical record, right? That day taught me the fundamental law of legacy. Documentation is survival. Testimony is existence. Platform is power. If you don't control your narrative, history won't tell your story. It will tell someone else's, right? Now, I'm using this platform to tell my story, right? I served in Afghanistan. I've served in Iraq. Two different theaters, both combat. Same brutal lesson about the relationship between voice and historical significance. Embedded journalists follow certain units, right? Print journalists from major publications, including all the networks, they were there. They documented certain combat operations. They interviewed soldiers. They captured heroism, and they witnessed and documented sacrifice on camera. Those units got their stories told to America. Those operations became part of the cultural understanding of what we saw and believed the war to be, right? Books written about deployments, films made about their battles, documentary coverage, right? National recognition, historical preservation, right? Other units, and they were a lot. And I'm talking about hundreds of units across both theaters, conducted equally dangerous operations, equally important missions, equally skilled tactical execution, equally courageous warriors making equally significant sacrifices. But no embedded journalists, no camera crews, no national media coverage, no documentation beyond military after action reports that remain classified or filed at the big 5P in those databases, right? That you as a civilian would never have access to, right? I served in both theaters. I saw the disparity in real time. And here's what's critical to understand. The difference wasn't about which units was better, braver, or more important to the mission. The difference was about which units had media coverage, right? Now ask yourself, did the uncovered warriors matter less? Did their combat actions count for less? Did their sacrifices deserve less recognition? Did their families earn less national gratitude? The answer is obviously no, right? Obviously no, right? We're all warriors serving on a mission for this country, right? But history treats them as if they did because they had no voice inside of your consciousness, right? You probably don't even know the names of some of those units, but you know the popular ones. Yeah, you know the popular ones. But there were hundreds of units out there in both theaters for multiple years. Outside of their families, you couldn't name one. I would put money on that. Outside of the popular ones, right? And then there were the interpreters, local nationalists who risked everything. Yeah, they were out there. They risked their lives, they risked their families' lives. It was an ugly, it was a really bad case of the ugliness. Their entire futures, they were embedded with other units. They saved American lives through their cultural knowledge and language skills. They put targets on their own backs, right? Many of them died helping us. Many of them were left behind when we withdrew from out of those countries. Forgotten until years later, when advocacy groups with platforms finally fought to get them special immigrant visas. Why were they initially forgotten? Why did it take years of advocacy to get them some the special visas, right? Because they had no voice. They had no voice in American media infrastructure, no representation in the Western political consciousness, no platform in the cultural conversation. They existed in operational reports, not in public memory. The civilians, families displaced by combat ops, the villages destroyed, and collateral damage. The many kids that I've seen that were orphaned because of the conflict. How many names do you know? How many of their stories made primetime television? How many of their faces appeared in American media? Were their lives worth less? Did their suffering matter less? Of course not. But they're treated as if they did because they were voiceless. This is the mechanism. Voice determines existence in historical consciousness. Platform determines legacy. Documentation determines whether you matter beyond your immediate circle. Right now, let's fast forward. Right? Let's fast forward. Talk about civilian life. Right? Let's talk about. I like to interject myself in these conversations, right? Because this is a place of reference that I know, and it's true. Right? As I was building SatDigiNet, right, as a service disabled veteran owned IT cybersecurity business, I'm competing against Fortune 500 companies for contracts. I'm going against established household government contractor names with decades of relationships. I'm noticing how the industry is dominated by these corporate giants. And what I saw and what I learned immediately, right? The corporate battlefield operates on a similar principle, nearly identical, right? Voice determines survival. Large corporations have marketing departments with budgets exceeding a lot of our combined salary, right? Right? They have public relations teams. They have established media relationships, advertising campaigns across multiple channels, conference presence, industry awards, thought leadership platforms. They control narratives. They dominate attention. They make themselves impossible to ignore in the marketplace. Small businesses, right? Veteran owned enterprises are constantly fighting with a fraction of a percent of those resources for voice and market attention. And here's what I witnessed, right? And I witnessed this repeatedly, right? Veteran entrepreneurs, right? People who served this country with distinction, who built solid businesses with quality products and exceptional service. A lot of times, and I said a lot, not all or always, so understand the distinction. A lot of times they get crushed, absolutely crushed in the marketplace. Not because their offering was inferior, not because they lacked capability, not because they couldn't execute, but because they couldn't get heard, right? Now, no marketing budgets compared to the bigger companies. No PR team generating media coverage. No established relationships with industry journalists. No platform presence. No amplified voice, right? So what it means, the inferior competitor with 10 times the marketing spend, they win the contract, right? They get the customers. They dominate the markets. They continuously to grow exponentially, not through a superior product, right? But through superior voice amplification. I watched a veteran-owned IT company, no name, with exceptional technical capabilities, better security protocols than some competitors, outstanding customer service, go bankrupt while an inferior competitor with massive marketing infrastructure thrive. The market doesn't care about your military service record. It doesn't care about product quality. If nobody knows your product exists, It cares about your ability to command attention and control marketplace narratives, right? Now, let me pivot for a second. And to my music entrepreneurs out there, right? You love your craft. You love to make music, whatever genre you love making music in. Here's my message to you. And I used to tell when I had my record label, this is what I used to tell artists all the time. So many artists would have so many mixtapes. You would have some artists, man, they would have entire catalogs of mixtapes, thousands of songs, right? Produced, graphics, all of the workings, but no marketing. You have 1,000 songs and no one has heard one. One. I used to tell my guys and gals, listen, we're going to create one single. We're going to concentrate and put all efforts into that one single. Then we're going to market it. We're going to present it. We're going to get some marketing space behind it. We're going to get some publicist energy behind it. We're going to get all these other parties involved in one single. That's how you build. And this is applicable, right? This is applicable. When I began to understand that reality, I began to understand a lot of different things in life, right? That reality shaped everything I built since. That's why I've constructed this podcast as business infrastructure, not hobby. That's why I show up 5 times a week at 9 p.m. without exception. That's why I'm continuing to build on this very platform, right? Dedicated voice infrastructure, platform architecture, and narrative control. Because I watched too many good people, veterans who sacrificed for this nation, disappear into economic irrelevance because they didn't understand that voice isn't optional. It's survival infrastructure in competitive markets, right? Now we're entering the most insidious battlefield that's happening right now, right? That's happening right now. We're talking about digital platforms and algorithmic control, right? You can create brilliant content. You can have genuinely important messages. You can offer real value to your audience. But if the algorithm doesn't favor you, if your content doesn't align with the platform commercial optimization, you're functionally voiceless, right? Functionally voiceless. Shadow bans where your content stops appearing in your followers' feeds. Reach restrictions that artificially cap your visibility regardless of quality. Demonetization that makes content creation economically unsustainable. Platform policy changes that overnight destroy years of audience building. I've watched creators with messages that objectively mattered, important voices, necessary perspectives, valuable content get algorithmically erased. Not because they violated community guidelines, not because their content was low quality, right? Because their content wasn't commercially optimal for platform revenue maximization. All right. Health and fitness creator sharing evidence right here, right? This based information. Demonetized because advertisers don't like certain health topics. Political commentators providing balanced analysis. Shadow banned because their perspective doesn't align with platform executives' preferences. Small business owner building audiences through consistent value reach is restricted when algorithm prioritizes a shift toward corporate advertiser content. This is Martin Erasure. It's not your story failing to make it to the history books. It's your content failing to make it into people's feeds, right? Same result. Historical irrelevance. Not because you have nothing to say, but because the infrastructure you built on decided you don't get to be heard, right? And here's the critical distinction. You don't own your Instagram audience. You don't own your YouTube subscribers. You don't own your TT followers. The platform owns them. You're renting attention on someone else's infrastructure. And the landlord of that infrastructure can evict you at any moment. I've already been evicted and banned from one of those platforms that I just mentioned, right? That's why intellectual property protection is warfare, not paperwork. Why owning your content through copyright is survival, not formality. Why building distribution across multiple platforms is strategic necessity, not excessive effort. I'm developing books because they're physical products that exist independent of algorithm decisions. I'm protecting frameworks like the 6 pillars of success and the 6 building blocks of reward through legal registration because they're owned assets, not because of platform dependent content. I'm building podcast infrastructure across multiple distribution channels because no single platform can kill my voice. The algorithm can throttle my Instagram reach tomorrow. Meta can change policies. Platform economics can shift, but they can't erase me from existence. If I've built sovereignty architecture, excuse me, sovereignty architecture. Across publishing, podcasting, speaking, consulting, and legally protected intellectual property, right? I mentioned earlier that I have over 350,000 followers across multiple platforms, right? That didn't happen just by luck. It happened through understanding that digital age voice is strategic warfare requiring a multiple front, multiple battle plans, right? And here's the dangerous lie that gets programmed into us from childhood, right? Good work speaks for itself. Just focus on excellence and you will naturally get recognized. That, my friends, is a false narrative. Completely false. Dangerously false. Good work sits in absolute silence until someone with a voice speaks for it. Or until the creator builds their own amplification platform. History is filled with brilliant inventors whose patents were stolen by people with better legal representation and larger platforms. Artists whose creative work was plagiarized by those with media connections. Warriors who built battlefield, who had battlefield achievements, were attributed to commanders who controlled the official reporting. That part used to bother me really bad. I'm not going to get into that, but I've seen it on multiple occasions, right? But I get it. It's a system. You got to work within the confines of the system. Entrepreneurs whose revolutionary ideas were borrowed by competitors with superior marketing infrastructure. Why does this keep happening? Because merit without voice equals obscurity. Excellence without platform equals erasure. The mythology of merit is particularly dangerous because it makes talented people passive. I'll just focus on doing great work and the work will speak for itself. Then they're genuinely shocked when someone with half their talent, but 10 times their platform gets recognized, gets the opportunities, gets the contracts, gets the legacy preservation. And let me be absolutely clear, right? Let me be absolutely clear. I'm not saying quality doesn't matter. Quality matters enormously. Technical excellence matters. Execution capability matters. But here's the technical reality. Quality plus voice beats quality alone. Every single time, right? Without exception, without fail. Across every competitive domain, right? Take two cybersecurity companies, right? Equal technical capabilities, equal security protocols, equal service delivery. Company A, no marketing presence, no industry voice, no platform amplification. Company B, conference speaking circuit, published thought leadership, media relationships, strong social presence. Who wins the Fortune 500 contracts? Who wins? You already know who's going to win. You already know. You understand and see the picture I'm trying to paint. You see what listen, critical thinking. Don't you go nowhere. Stay right there. Don't you go nowhere. Listen, don't you go nowhere. Right? Company B wins it. Not because they're better, but because they're heard, right? You take two combat units, equal valor, equal tactical execution, equal mission importance. Unit A, no embedded journalists, no media coverage, no documented operations beyond classified reports. Unit B, embedded journalists, documentary coverage, right? Books written about their deployment. Who gets remembered in national consciousness? You guessed it, Unit B. Not because they were braver, because they had a voice. Let's talk about two entrepreneurs. Two entrepreneurs with identical revolutionary products. Entrepreneur A, superior execution with no platform presence. Entrepreneur B, adequate execution, but strong personal brand and media amplification. Who builds the billion-dollar company, right? Entrepreneur B, not through superior product, through superior voice infrastructure. This isn't cynicism. This isn't pessimism. This is observational reality from someone who's competed across multiple domains. You want your work to matter? You need to build your voice. You want your contributions recognized? Develop your platform. You want your legacy preserved, control your narrative, right? Or you're going to spend your entire life watching inferior competitors get credit for your excellence because they understood something you refuse to accept. Voice is infrastructure, not vanity, right? Now, let me make this profoundly personal, right? Actually, you know what? I'm not going to make this profoundly personal, but I am going to talk about go time, right? I'm going to talk about go time for a second. Go time. The fired up train. All aboard the fired up train. Go time. The motivation workbook, right? My first book, right? When I was writing Go Time All Aboard the Fired Up Train, um, the principles in it, the 6 pillars of success, and the fired up train methodology, right? I'm working on 2 other books as we speak, right? A fantasy novel, and not because I harbor in delusions of literary greatness, and not because I think I'm going to win awards. I'm writing them because when I'm no longer here, I want my daughter to hear her father's voice. I want her grandkids and their kids and their kids to know my thoughts, to understand my values, to access my worldview, to have documented proof of who her father was and what he believed. I'm recording these podcasts 5 days a week, right? Motivation Mondays, Tech Tuesdays with the Sensei, Merger Wednesdays, which is we're talking about consciousness technology, right? And special guest Thursdays, and of course sitting down Sundays. Why? Because I'm creating an audio archive of consciousness. My perspective on technology, my analysis on business, my philosophy on success, my values on resilience, right? When Chai is 25, 35, 45 years old and wants to remember who her dad was or understand his thinking, she won't have to rely on fading memories or secondhand stories from relatives. She'll have hundreds of hours of documented content. She'll know exactly who I was. My voice won't fade. My perspective won't get distorted through family telephone games over generations, right? I'm developing frameworks. The 6 pillars of success, the 6 building blocks of reward, right? The 3-layer architecture of consciousness merger, and protecting them all through copyright registration and intellectual property law, not for ego, for inheritance. These are assets that generate value, assets that can be stolen because they're legally protected, assets that carry my name and attribution permanently, assets my daughter inherits that continue producing economic value and preserving legacy long after I'm gone. This isn't vanity, people. This is insurance against erasure, right? Our parents' generation, most of them almost have 0 digital footprint, right? Maybe there's a few family videos recorded on occasion, maybe some photos, right? But rarely any documented thoughts, rarely any recorded philosophical discussions, no architected, articulated worldview, no preserved wisdom. When they pass, their wisdom passes with them. Their hard-earned lessons become inaccessible to future generations. Their grandchildren have no way to know who they really were beyond aging photographs and family stories that get less accurate with each retelling. That's generational wisdom loss. That's legacy erosion. That's voice extension. I'm not making that mistake. I refuse to let my consciousness evaporate simply because I didn't document it. I refuse to let my daughter wonder who her father was. I refuse to allow anything that I've done in the total time that I've been on this God's green earth, right? Be lost, right? My entrepreneurial lessons, my education background, my philosophical development, my core values, my beliefs, my love for our beloved creator, right? This is legacy architecture. This is voice sovereignty. This is how you matter to the people you love most, not temporarily, but permanently, right? Now, oh man, I'm going over. I'm going over tonight, man. You look, just lock in with me. I see the score is tied, which is crazy. Listen, I'm here for it, right? Let's talk about, and we're gonna pivot for a moment. Let's talk about consciousness. Let's talk about the voice in this AI age that we're in, right? Because everybody's talking about AI, 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 AI. Who can stop talking about AI, right? Who can stop talking about it, right? This conversation connects directly into my Merger Wednesdays, right? Content. Human AI consciousness integration through real verifiable technologies such as CRISPR, gene therapy, nanobots, smart dust, Neuralink, brain computer interfaces. This isn't science fiction, it's science now. These are deployed or actively deploying technologies that fundamentally change what voice and legacy mean in the 21st century. This is why I'm pursuing my doctoral studies in AI foundations and ethical considerations at CTU. Why I'm developing my dissertation on I'm not on consciousness and ethical standards, right? Why I'm positioning myself, and I'm not going to tell you that it's coming though. It's a new brand, right? Because the future of voice isn't just digital platforms, it's consciousness preservation and transmission. We're approaching, thank you for that, Mom. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're approaching where we're already are entering a technological reality where your thoughts, perspectives, accumulated wisdom, decision making patterns, philosophical frameworks, your entire consciousness architecture can be documented, preserved, and potentially interfaced with future systems, right? There are technologies right now that allow biological modification at the genetic level. Your genetic information, which influences everything from disease susceptibility to cognitive patterns, can now be edited, optimized, and potentially preserved. Elon Musk created Neuralink and there are other similar brain-computer interfaces technologies out there that are creating direct digital connections to human neural activity. Your thoughts can be monitored, recorded, potentially decoded, and stored, right? And don't even get me started on discussions I've had on smart dust and nanobots. Y'all have to go watch Merger Wednesdays to find out more on that. I'm not getting into that. But my point is this. This isn't speculation. These technologies exist. They're being refined, they're being deployed, and they represent the most significant evolution in consciousness preservation since the written language. If people will understand how to document and protect their consciousness in this merger age, they'll achieve voice permanence that will transcend biological unaliving, right? The people who ignore this, technological reality. They'll be the 21st century equivalent of those who refuse to learn writing when everyone else adopted literacy. Voiceless in an age where consciousness can be preserved. I'm documenting everything: podcasts, books, frameworks, decision patterns, philosophical positions, not just current consumption. I'm creating a consciousness data set. When consciousness AI merger technologies mature, any documented thinking becomes digital substrate for consciousness preservation. My daughter won't inherit my money or my businesses. She'll potentially inherit interfaceable access to her dad's consciousness architecture. That's not science fiction. That's strategic preparation for a technological reality that's already emerging. You want voice sovereignty in the consciousness merger age? Start comprehensive documentation now, not later, but now. And here's the paradox, right? Here's the paradox. The paradox of it is, and this is what's breaking most people's legacy planning, right? Digital content is simultaneously more permanent and more fragile than any previous medium. More permanent because once something's on the net, it never fully disappears. Digital copies proliferate. Archive services preserve content. Deletion is nearly impossible. If content had any reach, it's almost impossible, right? More fragile because platforms die. Formats become obsolete. Links break. Accounts get banned. Algorithms suppress. Companies change policies. Digital infrastructures require constant maintenance or it degrades into inaccessibility. Your grandfather's handwritten letters, still readable 80 years later, if preserved properly. Your blog posts from 15 years ago, probably gone unless you actively migrated them through multiple platforms, or you will see them on one of those feeds that say this is from 15 years ago, right? Physical books from 100 years ago, they're still on the shelves. They're still readable. Your early YouTube videos, potentially deleted by platform policy changes that you had no control over. This is why multi-format legacy architecture matters. And I'm not just talking about building digital presence. I'm building across physical and digital, owned and distributed, centralized and decentralized, right? We're talking about physical formats. We're talking about owned infrastructure. We're talking about distributed platforms. We're talking about legal protections, multiple media types, audio, video, text frameworks, because different formats have different preservation characteristics. My Final Boss community, my Final Boss Nation, my smarts, my warriors, my motivators, right? You guys need to understand this. Your Instagram account isn't legacy architecture. It's rented attention on borrowed infrastructure. Your self-published book, that's legacy architecture. It exists independent of any platform's algorithm on or policy decision. Your podcast on Spotify alone, that's fragile. Your podcast distributed across 10 different platforms with RSS feed, that's what you control. That's resilience. Your brilliant tweets, gone if the platform dies or your account gets banned. Your framework documented and copyrighted materials, permanent and legally protected. Build redundancy into your voice infrastructure. Don't let your entire legacy depend on these owners' business decisions, right? Or their platform management, right? Intellectual property protection isn't paperwork, it's warfare. It's the legal infrastructure that prevents your voice from being stolen, diluted, or misattributed. You have to start now to protect your IP. Start working with legal teams on comprehensive IP protection, right? On everything you create, whether it's books, podcasts, content frameworks, business methodologies, training systems, the 6 pillars of success, the 6 building blocks of reward, the fired up train methodology, the 3-layer architecture for consciousness merger. Why? Because I've watched brilliant people create valuable intellectual property only to have it stolen by competitors with better legal infrastructure. The entrepreneur who develops a revolutionary business process but doesn't trademark it or protect it as a trade secret, the competitor copies, markets it better, builds an empire on stolen methodology, and the original creator gets nothing. No attribution, no compensation, no legal credit. The author who writes valuable content but doesn't copyright it properly, content gets plagiarized, repackaged, sold by others. Original creator has no legal recourse because they didn't protect their work. The veteran who develops training methodology through years of combat experience and federal service, private contractor copies the methodology, sells it to government agency, makes millions off of it. The original creator, the one who developed it through actual battlefield experience, gets erased from the narrative. This isn't theoretical, people. This happens every day, all day, 24/7, 365. This happens constantly, right? So here's my protocol. Listen up. This is where the note taking takes place. Copyright everything. Your books, your training material, your frameworks, your methodologies, your significant content. File everything and with the Copyright Office. That's minimal. That's your first layer of protection, right? That protection is permanent, though. Trademark your brands, your business names, your product names, your methodologies, your signature phrases, right? Register with USPTO. That protects it from being diluted or stolen. Document development, man. Date stamp records of when you created what you created. That protects against claims that someone else developed their work first, right? Then you have make sure you have your NDAs in place. When you're sharing proprietary methods with potential partners and contractors or employees, this protects against theft. Then you have to have your TOSs. Make sure you have your TOSs, man. That's your terms of service. On these platforms, on platforms you own, right? It specifies what others can and cannot do with your content. People say nobody cares about my stuff enough to steal it. Wrong. If your methodology works, if your methodology is intriguing, someone will steal it. If your framework creates value, someone will copy it. If your content attracts audience, someone will plagiarize it. Protect now or litigate later, right? Yeah, I'm protecting everything because building legacy right now for my kid, right? I want her to inherit protected assets, not having to fight legal battles, right? IP protection is voice sovereignty. It's ensuring your contribution remains attributed to you. It's legacy defense, right? And don't go nowhere. Don't go nowhere. I know this is not an entertaining show. This is an education show tonight, right? This is an education show. So I want you to do all those things, right? The IP protection, the document protection. If you're using multiple platform contribution, you need to protect it, right? And I'm only I got a few more minutes. I'm gonna be a few more minutes, right? I'm gonna be a few more minutes and then I'm gonna close out. Let me give you the complete framework. Voice sovereignty requires 4 layers of infrastructure, right? Layer 1 is creation. Layer 2 is protection. Layer 3 is distribution. Layer 4 is preservation, right? You need to follow each and every last single one of those layers to a T, right? Because if you're building value and you have something that's valuable and you have valuable content, it can get stolen if it's not protected. It can disappear when you're no longer here. No preservation. And to my Final Boss community, Final Boss Nation, we build on all 4 layers. We create, we protect, we trademark, we distribute, right? We preserve, right? That's voice sovereignty. That's the framework that prevents erasure. Look at yourself, do an assessment. Look at your products that you're doing, do an assessment. Look at the content you're creating, do an assessment. Have you completed all 4 of those layers? Because it's more than just creating the content. It's more than that. Anytime you create something, there's above and below, right? And what I mean by that, you have to be able to have the ability to see ahead of what you're creating. And you have to have the ability to see what's below you, what you're creating, right? Where are you weak? Which layer needs immediate attention? You need to identify it and you need to fix it. And you need to start doing that this week, right? There's a time that's coming. I'm warning you, there's a time that's coming. If your IPs aren't protected, they will no longer belong to you. They could be used and sold and made a profit of, right? You need to start protecting yourself. History will forget you if you let it. Your voice is your weapon against erasure. Your platform is your insurance against irrelevance. Your documentation is your legacy architecture, but only if you build it, only if you protect it, only if you use it. I'm giving the Final Boss community, Final Boss Nation, 3 mission critical commands. And these aren't suggestions. These are orders coming from someone who's seen what happens when people ignore these fundamentals. My first command, document your journey. This week, not eventually, not conditions when conditions are perfect. This week, start documenting. Record 1 audio file of your thoughts. Write 1 page about lessons you've learned. Filmed 1 video explaining something you know, right? Something, anything. Begin the habit of preservation. Your thoughts matter. Your experiences have value. Your perspective is unique, but only if you capture them. Unalive people tell no tales because they didn't record them while they were alive. Don't be the person whose wisdom dies when they simply when they do when they do simply because they never documented it, right? Start tonight. Start tonight. Start tonight, right? Amplify your voice, right? Find someone who you can communicate with. Find someone who you can talk to, who has value but no platform. Someone creating good content that deserves reach. Someone with an important message that isn't being heard. This week, share that content to your audience. Tag them and post amplifying their message. Direct message offering to collaborate or cross promote. Be the voice for someone who can't be heard, right? This isn't charity. This is tactical community building. This is creating collective amplification infrastructure. This is how we build resilience against suppression. You amplify them today, they amplify you tomorrow. We all rise together. That's how marginalized voices throughout history have survived institutional suppression, right? And command number 3, protect your narrative. Audit your voice infrastructure this week. Do you own your content or does the platform own it? If IG disappeared tomorrow, could you still reach your audience? If your intellectual property is protected, if someone stole your methodology and marketed, could you prove ownership? Do you have multi-platform distribution? If one platform suppresses you, do you have backup channels? Are you building preservation infrastructure? When you pass, will your voice live on or disappear? Look at the identity gaps. Fix them immediately. Not when crisis hits, but now. These are your 3 commands. Document, amplify, protect. We're going to call that the DAP, right? As I'm giving y'all a DAP, right? These are your tactical orders. You're part of the Final Boss community because you refuse to be average. You refuse to be voiceless. You refuse to be forgotten. You refuse to let history erase your contribution. Build your voice, protect your platform, document your legacy, execute, wash, rinse, and repeat, right? Now, we're coming to the end of episode number 172 of Sitting Down Sundays with the Final Boss. I'm not building this podcast empire for vanity. I'm not writing books for ego. I'm not pursuing doctoral studies in AI foundations and credentials to have it on my wall. I'm building because I've seen what happens when good people have no voice. When warriors who died unnamed because no journalist was embedded in their unit. Entrepreneurs who built exceptional businesses but couldn't compete with inferior competitors with marketing machines. Or parents who accumulated profound wisdom but didn't document it, leaving their grandchildren with no access to their thoughts, right? Federal servants who dedicated decades to mission but left no record of their contributions. I'm building because I understand that in this age right now, this consciousness merger age, this algorithm age, this digital permanence age, voice equals existence. Platform equals power. Documentation equals immortality, right? You've been watching this right now because you refuse to be voiceless. Keep refusing, right? And tomorrow night, Motivation Mondays. That's right. Motivation Mondays tomorrow night, right? 9 p.m. Then I see you again on Tuesday for Tech Tuesdays with the sensei, right? And we might expand on this IP protection stuff, right? I haven't thought about it yet, but I think that's the direction we're going to go into. And then join us on Wednesday for Merger Wednesday, where we'll be discussing real consciousness technology, man, right? The CRISPR, NeuroDust, Neuralink, Smart Dust, all those things, man. And special guest Thursdays, right? And then again next Sunday, right? With me, with Uncomfortable Truths. 5 nights a week, every week, 9 p.m. Eastern time, because consistency is infrastructure. And before we close, understand this. Understand this. The technology exists today for your consciousness to be preserved beyond biological unaliving. The legal infrastructure exists to protect your intellectual property permanently. The platforms exist to amplify your voice globally. The tools exist to document everything. What doesn't exist is time. You don't get unlimited years to build this. You don't get second chances after you're gone. You need to start tonight, not tomorrow, tonight. This is the Final Boss Podcast, episode number 172. I am the Final Boss, your voice that matters, the architect of insight, right? But only if you build it. Your voice matters. Only if you build it. Only if you protect it. Only if you use it. Stay dangerous. Stay documented. Stay amplified. And to each and every last single one of you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And if this resonated with you, let it marinate in your spine. And always remember, there's a heavy pain that comes with discipline, but the pain of regret is even heavier. I am here. We are here. This is the Final Boss Podcast. This is the Final Boss community. This is the Final Boss Nation. We're all on this journey together. Be mindful of that and be balanced, right? Be equal and be smart. This has been episode number 172. 172 on our way to 200. Y'all have a great and amazing evening, night, or whatever. And I will see you again tomorrow for Motivation Monday, right? You'll notice a difference in energy tomorrow. Tonight was educational. Tomorrow, we dive into some motivation. And the fired up train, right? The fired up train, baby. On tomorrow night on Motivation Monday for episode number 173. I'll see you guys then. Y'all have a great one.